and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man whom I assume is happy to be back in studio with me. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, I am indeed. After several delays, including me leaving all the mics and cables at home, yes, I'm excited to be back in studio and finally recording.
So we're recovering from our trip to Germany.
Yes.
And we are slightly less tightly scheduled than we were in Germany.
Slightly less. Yeah, that was an intense round of scheduling.
It was very German.
I am, that said, slightly more hungover than I was in Germany because Virginia went blue last night and we were celebrating, and I'm feeling it today.
Well, speaking of blue, we have some listener questions today, and the first question
I see what you've done here.
Is all about a man who wears blue.
He is.
Taylor, you want to ask the first question?
I will, because with that in mind, when I tweeted out last night, Virginia is blue, I got a lot of I thought you were a Man United fan, I thought you were a Kickers fan. There was some confusion.
Virginia is Everton?
Yeah, exactly. And then, yes, some of it was, it makes sense because Pulisic is there now, so you would be blue. Josh Handelman asks, now that Pulisic is starting games for Chelsea and getting goals and assists, can you give any analysis on why he's doing so well? What's he doing right that he wasn't doing earlier in the season?
Ooh, okay. So, I mean, we got the hat-trick a couple of weeks ago, the goal against Watford, a lot of, secondary assists in that 4-4 draw with Ajax. Here's what I'm seeing. He has a consistent position, so he's most often on the left side of a 4-3-3, and he's receiving the ball, and he's bringing it inside. And the big change from early in the season is when he's dribbling, he's got that drift. Do you know what I'm talking about? That thing where, especially when he starts it on the left, he'll receive the ball and he'll start running at people and he'll just sort of drift infield with the ball and nobody tackles him. It's a special skill that Pulisic displayed at Dortmund and is displaying at Chelsea. And it's that thing of he's just out of reach all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He keeps the ball out of reach but accelerates towards the middle. And I think it's starting to cause teams a lot of panic in the Premier League. And here's the big difference I see is earlier in the season, he would try dribbling from deep, right? He'd start dribbling in his own half, and there's just too many bodies and you get tackled, and it feels more dangerous, right, when you lose the ball there. And then when he'd get farther upfield, he'd be a bit more conservative, maybe he'd be a bit, he'd defer to teammates and pass them the ball. Now it seems like he's all about getting in attacking positions, getting the ball, and then drifting infield from the left into danger areas.
Yeah, with that in mind, I would almost say this is one I feel less confident in, but with what you've just said, that all checks out, and it makes me think that what I'm about to say is accurate, which is that I almost think maybe earlier in the season he was trying to do too much, which meant dropping further deep to try to get the ball.
Yeah.
Because he is still making very aggressive direct runs. It's just now he's starting them further up the field, and he's more so part of a quick, rapid counterattack while he stays wide and then drifts inside. And I think because of that directness is rewarded more often than starting 30 yards back and trying to run directly. Now you've got more opposition players in front of you. It's going to limit the effectiveness of that approach.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we're saying the same thing, basically, right? Yeah. So we agree. That's good stuff.
We do. I would also add a couple things. We talked about this previously. Frank Lampard had the very clarifying quote, I think a week or two ago, about he didn't have any break coming into Chelsea. We had the opportunity.
He cut short his rest, right? He wanted to finish with the US and go straight back in, and Lampard was like, oh, that's great, but you're going to be tired, right?
Exactly, yes. It was he was tired. We had people who could already play, so we wanted to give him an opportunity to acclimate, and I do think that was part of it, is that he needed time to sort of learn the system, learn his role within the system. To your earlier point, I think it's also that now he has kind of a dedicated area where he tends to operate.
Yeah.
We saw him sometimes central for Chelsea earlier on, and I don't think that benefits him as well as, in the game against Watford this weekend. He is very much on that touchline and then moves in when the situation requires. But he's starting wide and then drifting more centrally.
So he's comfortable in his spot, right?
Yes, I think so. I think that's a big part of it. And I think getting more comfortable is a huge aspect of it for me, that once you start to feel it a little bit more, and you can see that in the shots he's taking and the goals that he's getting.
Yeah, especially Burnley. He took some, I would call them low percentage shots that kind of came off.
Yeah. But you have to do that. And it goes to a point I think we both
came off Burnley defenders.
It did. That I think he's kind of aggressively pursuing 1v1s. I think that's sort of what Chelsea have been told to do. There's the gif of Kurt Zouma when he has the great slaloming dribble from yesterday and then he rockets the ball over the bar.
Sure does.
But that still is him taking people on. And I think Lampard wants to see his attackers take people on. Pulisic seemed a little bit hesitant to do that earlier. Now we're seeing
he did it in the wrong place.
Or he did it in the wrong place. And now I think he's being much more direct and much more self-confident when he tries to take those players on. And when you're believing yourself and going at an opponent, it's always going to be better than like, well, I hope this works.
I also think there's a very basic thing of just he's more used to his teammates and his teammates are more used to him. It just all connects a little bit better. They're just understand more where Pulisic wants to run, and he understands where they want to run, and things just click a little faster, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I know that's a very basic analysis, but I also think it's true.
I think it is too, because like you look at the run against Watford that led to his goal this weekend, and it might look simple, but it's really, really clever. The way he always stays goal side, but then he gets away from his defender, but he cuts inside of another defender, and he always makes sure there are gaps open, but he puts himself in the position for the easy kind of lateral pass.
I can't remember who provides that pass, but they know that he's going to be there, which is not a thing that you would have said at the start of the season.
No, you would not have. And I'm not sure he would have been there either. And so it's like they may not have played it to him because they may not have known, but he may not have sort of rewarded that ball had it have come. And this time he makes the direct, incisive run, gets on the end of it, finishes it, and rewards the manager's faith in him. And I think as long as he continues to do that, he'll continue to play.
I think we're enjoying it, right? We're on a Pulisic high right now. Pulisic's on a high at Chelsea. It's probably worth noting that it's not going to last.
I got uncomfortable when he said now that he's starting for Chelsea and getting goals and assists. I was sort of like, like a hat trick and then one more goal. Let's just calm it down.
What's interesting, he didn't officially get an assist against Ajax, but he won the penalty and he had a couple of secondary assists. Yeah. So he's contributing to the attack all the time. But I do think Pulisic's still a young player and will have a dip in form. He'll get beat up in the Premier League enough that, like, Mason Mount has had a little dip in form, which I think has benefited Pulisic, right?
His finishing was not great this weekend, Mason Mount.
I didn't see so much this weekend.
It could have been like 6-1. He had a few chances that he hit right at Ben Foster. Ben Foster had some amazing saves. Ben Foster had an amazing save, Ryan, and I talked about it on Pulisic. He goes for like a near post header and he has it like reversed off the back of his head, and Foster just tips it over the bar.
The Burnley special?
But it was almost a flick-on brace for Christian Pulisic.
But I'm just saying we should brace ourselves for there'll be a little dip in form and maybe he'll be out of the team for a little bit and maybe Hudson-Odoi will take his place for a little bit, but now we have the evidence of he can do it. I feel a lot more comfortable with any little dip and a few games on the bench. It's kind of fine because it's not all season. It's going to come in highs and lows.
He's shown that he
Peaks
can do
valleys.
it, so that then the manager knows, like, okay, I know he can play to this level, so even if he has a dip in form, the level has been established, so you can then sort of give him a break and expect him to get back to that point.
There we go. All right, next question comes from Craig Muir. Craig Muir says, if you could bring back any former US national team player in their prime and put them in this current US men's national team squad, who would it be and why?
My answer to this is not what I thought it was going to be. I read these questions this morning and I had like some immediate answers. I took the dogs for a long walk. This is the question that stuck in my head, and I ended up with my answer because I was thinking like,
Please don't have the same answer.
We need a striker, and to me like Brian McBride is the obvious answer.
Yeah.
Maybe Clint Dempsey is the obvious answer. But with a lot of them, I feel like we're going to have the same one. Even like Eddie Pope, I thought like that would be cool to have like a really commanding center back.
It would be cool to get the Pope back.
It would be cool. But in the end, I was thinking about what this team needs, and I think it needs leadership. I think it needs fight. I think it needs technical ability through the middle. I think it needs a peak Jermaine Jones.
Wow.
That is my answer. Because I was realizing we never really saw peak Jermaine Jones. He switched to the U.S. in October of 2009, but due to injuries and sort of missing camps, he didn't make his first appearance until October 3rd, 2010. That was 1 month and 1 year before he turned 30. So he was basically 29 years old when he makes his first appearance, which is like at the tail end of peak performative years. And yet with all that, think about what we got from Jermaine Jones and how critical he was in patrolling midfields, like knocking people off the ball, but being a technically precise player to function within a system and score big goals and be a leader. And I think he brings all of that to this current team, and we are a way better team.
All right, I'm not going to argue because it is what we need right now. I would say in some ways we've got the sort of what do you call it?
We have Jermaine Jones Jr. and Weston McKennie.
That's it. Yes, I was going to say the chrysalis version of Jermaine Jones, and Weston McKennie's not fully formed yet, but like his hero is Jermaine. Well, not his hero, but one of his role models at Schalke was Jermaine Jones, and that's the player he wants to be.
Right.
Here's a question: where would that Jermaine Jones fit in the Greg Berhalter system? The number 8, maybe.
That's the tough one because it's the number 8.
I guess the Weston McKennie role, right? Where you're like sometimes the 6, sometimes the 8.
Yeah.
So he's going to be alongside Bradley again.
I don't really love kicking Weston out, but I do like the idea of maybe playing him elsewhere. Maybe you put him as the 10, you let Pulisic go wide.
I mean, you could lose Weston for better Weston, which is what Jermaine Jones is.
Yeah, but I still want Weston around.
Yeah. Best Weston.
Yeah, best Weston. It did make me want to email some people and ask, like, how much better is Jermaine Jones than Weston McKennie?
Yeah.
But I do think in his prime, he is probably one of the better players on the current national team. So I'm good with Jermaine Jones coming back. And then, as I said, just for all of the fight and the snow throw and everything that he brought, the goal against Portugal, I need those moments again, and I feel like Jermaine Jones could deliver them.
I went with Clint Dempsey. Yep, I went with Clint Dempsey because he's not a guy that would follow the rigid Berhalter patterns of play. Like when he goes here, you go here, and you make this run. We know that Clint Dempsey is not the type of guy that would... He wouldn't like maybe argue with it. He just would go out there and kind of not do it. He would improvise himself and probably make something happen. And I think he's Pete Clint Dempsey, we're talking, is so good that Berhalter wouldn't be able to drop him. So I think Dempsey's improv might be enough to break the rigidity of the Berhalter system.
This isn't what you were saying, but it's now sort of led me to wonder this. Is part of the problem that we don't have players like Clint Dempsey who have sort of been there so long that they'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. This isn't going to work. And like we don't have the players who have the kind of authority in the locker room to make Greg Berhalter adjust a little bit. Like
maybe.
I think if Clint Dempsey's there, to your point, he's like, no, I'm going to do what I need to do, not even in a really selfish way.
But I even think, here's my guess, obviously, I think he would like do the patterns in practice and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to game day, he would know, I'm going to do my Clint Dempsey stuff, right?
Yeah.
He would try stuff. He would bring an air of unpredictability and some of the fight that, maybe not in terms of ground covered, but in terms of attitude, he brings some of the fight that Jermaine Jones does, right? So you get that extra bit as well. I think he could be sort of the striker in this Greg Berhalter system and bring some unpredictability to the team.
I agree with all that. I'm not disagreeing, but the reason why I didn't end up going with Clint Dempsey, and I'm wondering if you have thoughts on this, is because by all accounts, Dempsey, a great player, a great figure for U.S. soccer, not necessarily a leader, not necessarily a guy who is going to watch every single game and figure out all the tactics.
No, he's not a leader, he's a difference maker.
Right. And so are you okay with that? Because I feel like this team needs more leadership and needs more vocal, yo, let's get going. And that to me is Jermaine Jones more so than
this
Clint
isn't the thing where we argue about our two
choices. I'm just wondering, would that be, do you feel like that would be an issue? Or are you just sort of no, he brings the creativity and skill that it kind of doesn't matter?
I think the most important thing is someone who their very presence and their style of play would alter the Berhalter system. Okay. And I think Clint Dempsey's presence would do that.
All right.
Yeah, so that to me, that's the most important thing.
All right. I like it.
Let's bring them both back.
Let's bring them both back. And also maybe Eddie Pope.
Doesn't this make you realize how much you love the teams of the past as well? When we're talking about the eras of Dempsey and Jones, it's not even that long ago.
No, it's always difficult in the moment to were they that good at passing? Was Eddie Pope that good playing out of the back? But we just did our US draft for our all-time US roster for Soccer 101,
which will be released very soon. By the way, if you're not subscribed to Soccer 101, get on it. US men's national team all-time 11 will be coming out.
Yes, and when you go back and watch some of those players, not only were they good enough for now, they were in some cases maybe better than now. Yeah. Some of the patterns of play and the quick passing sequences very impressive. And yes, I definitely miss those.
Oh dear. Also with Dempsey, I'm now thinking we missed out on the Dempsey-Pulisic connection, which would have happened at the 2018 World Cup, right? It might have been Dempsey coming off the bench and it wouldn't be peak Dempsey. But I do remember just a few moments in qualifying when things went well, the big wins over Honduras and stuff like that. There was a lot of link-up between Dempsey and Pulisic, and it was old crafty man who with clever passes and this pacey young guy who can run past people. I would have loved to see that connection, and I'd love to see it again.
Because by the time we started getting him in the same teams, it was usually when it was Dempsey for 30 minutes, and we thought maybe he was on the outs with Bruce Arena or wasn't so thrilled. That is a pretty good what if. I also think Jermaine Jones going to the 2010 World Cup is another great historical what if, but it wasn't meant to be.
You said that was just an injury problem, essentially.
Yeah, he had been. It was a long-term injury. I remember writing U.S. roster depth charts 6 months before the World Cup, and he hadn't played in a year or 6 months, and it was still but maybe we'll get him in there because he's just that good.
Oh, lots more questions to come. But first, Taylor, let's talk about today's sponsor, Dollar Shave Club.
When we talk about Dollar Shave Club, we are talking about the quality of their products. And I will say this to the quality of their products. Yesterday, I had to do a rapid fire shaving because we were going out to celebrate the election.
Sounds dangerous.
And I needed to look clean and sophisticated because we were around my wife's coworkers, and they're not soccer slobs in their soundproofed office. And with the Dollar Shave Club products, specifically the shave lather, I also used a little bit of the shave butter just to see what happens when you double up. And the answer is you get a wonderful, wonderful shave with no nicks, no cuts, and most importantly, not a lot of irritation and bumps. And you don't end up looking like a 14-year-old who just learned how to shave. Instead, you look like a proper adult.
Let me take a look.
You approve?
Can confirm.
Okay.
Can confirm. No,
I feel like you actually did just
bumps.
inspect my face.
I mean, yeah, I took a good look.
I got a little nervous there.
In case it was one you'd missed.
Yes.
Thanks to Dollar Shave Club, there was not.
Nothing.
They're not all about just shaving products, right?
True.
They've also expanded. You can get the shampoo, which I love. You can get the... I don't use the prep scrub to shave. I just use the prep scrub to exfoliate. I'm not sure that's the intended... I guess it can do both things, right? It can exfoliate and prepare you for a shave.
It's the best, especially in the winter. It reminds me of when I would go to like the Turkish baths in Istanbul, and you'd get the scrub that they would do there, and you'd walk outside and be like, I feel everything. And that's what the prep scrub does as well. It was chilly yesterday. I walked outside. I was like, ooh, like I can feel things that I didn't feel yesterday.
Yep.
Dollar Shave Club helping me feel feelings.
And here's the thing. In the copy they send us, they ask us to mention the quality of the products.
Yep.
If we didn't believe in it, we just straight up wouldn't say it.
This is
right.
true.
We absolutely will not read copy that we don't think is true. But we're both very happy to talk about the quality of the Dollar Shave Club products because they bring it.
Yes, but if you yourself want to try the quality of the product, you can put the quality of Dollar Shave Club's products to the test. Their Ultimate Shave Starter Set has basically everything you need for an amazing shave: the Executive Razor, Shave Butter, Prep Scrub, and Post Shave Dew. The best part is you can try it for just $5 right now.
After that, the Restock box ships regular-sized products at regular prices. Get your ultimate starter shave set for just $5 at dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. That's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS.
Thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's episode. Back to some listener questions. Up next is Chris Jackson asking, if Berhalter were fired, would Jill Ellis be considered for the job? What would be the positives and negatives of hiring her, and what would she bring to the team?
So I think if Berhalter were fired, Jill Ellis would not be in the running for the job because she's shown no interest in coaching men's soccer, right? It's not a thing that she's ever said, hey, here's what I want to do next, right?
Correct.
So I don't think that she's a realistic possibility. So don't go thinking that she might be the next coach.
Yeah, can I jump in there for a moment?
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you to the extent that I know there are some people who jump back and forth. Phil Neville wants to coach, I'm assuming, the England national team at some point on the men's side, but is coaching the women. But with those exceptions aside, I do sort of think that coaching women's soccer and men's soccer, it's like coaching two different sports because you have to factor in the physicality, the long ball, all these different things that maybe are different about the women's game than the men's game and vice versa. So I think
it's also just knowing the world, right? If Jill Ellis is probably an expert in women's soccer, top to bottom, knows all the players. If she's putting all her energy into knowing women's soccer, she's not going to have as deep a knowledge of men's soccer. It's two different worlds in that way, right? It's like there's two different databases.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this may sound ridiculous, but I think if you brought Pep Guardiola in, he would struggle because it's a different game going both ways. That it's just going to be a different thing that he would have to adapt to. I'm sure he could, but I don't think that you can just say oh, you've had success here, so you'd have success there. I think it is much more nuanced and challenging than that.
It's also Jill has had great success with the women's national team. Essentially, getting the best out of a superstar team, right? She created an environment where these sort of best players in the world could feel comfortable and feel hyper-competitive. I think that's a very different environment to create than what you'd need to create with the men's team, which is to get a bunch of middleweights to fight above their weight class.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a big problem, is that she is used to managing some of the best players in the world.
She's used to dominance. She's used to being able to put Crystal Dunn at left back and it work out.
Right.
You can't do that with the US men's national team.
It is the equivalent of coaching Brazil or Germany and just having this incredible surplus of talent that you have to find a way to make everybody fit into. Whereas with the men's team, I mean, here we are begging to have Clint Dempsey and Jermaine Jones back because there is a lack of quality in certain positions.
And then there's also, being the men's national team coach obviously brings a lot of scrutiny. Being the first female men's national team coach would have all kinds of scrutiny and a weird novelty value that would invite a lot of press attention from all over the world that maybe wouldn't be a good thing for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I do think that if you're looking for pros, I don't think there are many, but maybe that's one, is it brings positive PR to the program at a time when people don't have much positive to say about the U.S. men's team, that to have your first female coach for the U.S. men, and I think for at least in terms of soccer that I can recall, that would be a positive maybe potentially.
Yeah, and I would say if she was interested, if she suddenly said, hey, I want to do this, I'd be interested to see it happen, to see how it went down.
I don't mean this to be discourteous to Jill Ellis. Would you want to see her come in and take over the men's team right away, or would you rather see her with the U23s so that she can sort of get her footing, see what it's all about, and then move to that next level?
I mean, it'd be nice if she could, coach the Olympics first and then take the senior team. But I'd be all in just to see what happens with the senior team.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other pros? Because I honestly did struggle to think of positives.
The obvious pro, which is the reason the question was asked, is that she has a track record of being very successful in international football.
This is true. Yeah.
So there is that.
There is that. I still struggle with the, like, is it the case that if you have far and away the best players in the world, like, it makes it that much easier? Yeah. Would she have been able to do this with a lesser women's national team?
Well, think of another pro is that we did see a lot of Jill Ellis tactical tweaks throughout the World Cup. She would capitalise on certain things or shut down certain things from the opposition.
France game would be a key example.
Yeah, wasn't there a game where she used Rapinoe essentially had a quiet game.
Yeah.
It was because she was
like tracking back, right?
She was tracking back. I can't remember who the opponent was, but
it would probably be France, I think, with El Majri maybe overlapping on the right hand side.
That could be it. Yeah, that could be it. So we haven't seen much of that kind of thing from Berhalter, right? So that would be a pro that she would bring to the game, potentially. Yeah.
I think I can take that pro.
Yeah.
But I do not think she would be considered, nor do I think she would want to be considered.
Because she would put US Soccer in an interesting position if she said, I'm interested in this job, because then they'd have to. I don't really think they would give her the opportunity because they haven't shown a great respect for the women's national team.
Nope.
But it would certainly put US Soccer in an interesting position if she put herself forward.
This is true. I do think she's probably in a place where she needs to be wise about what job she takes next, because right now she has this back-to-back world champions resume, and then if she coached the men and it went horribly, that tarnishes that reputation a little bit. So I do think she'll be careful in her job opportunities going forward. But maybe she takes the men, who knows?
Maybe she's like, I want to coach a good team. All right, next question. Joey Jadlowski asks, if you were commissioner of Major League Soccer and looking to grow the popularity of the league in the United States, which I guess the commissioner is always looking to do, which would be the more important segment to focus your efforts on? Is it A, Eurosnobs, who already watch soccer but are resistant to MLS? Or is it B, casual American sports fans who watch the big four sports but are not interested in soccer?
All right. Here's my answer. It should be the Eurosnobs, but because of how the Eurosnobs behave, it's the casual American sports fans.
But if you were sitting at your desk as commissioner, you'd go after the casual American sports fans. Why? So why so?
Because I think with Eurosnobs, you still have to break through a lot of walls of, you're just copying. Like, all of the selling points of the league, the argument in response would be like, you're just copying other people. Scarves and flags and smoke and flares and tifos. That's just done everywhere else, and it's done better in Germany and in Spain and Italy and what have you. And so you're always going to have more of that, like, negativity to start. Whereas I think about, like, Leslie Jones and J.J. Watt. People who have a passing interest in soccer. In J.J. Watt's case, I think he played, but then it was too low scoring for him. He tweeted about that this weekend. Leslie Jones, I don't know if she has any background in soccer, but she got into the atmosphere. She got into the playoffs. She really liked Jordan Morris. And like,
I think MLS playoffs she was watching?
I believe so. Yeah, it was a couple seasons ago. I don't think it was last year. It might have been the year before, but I could be wrong. But I think if you're sort of,
I thought it was the World Cup.
It was definitely Jordan Morris for Seattle. She was all about JMO's move.
Okay.
But I think, like, if you get people in on playoffs and the atmosphere and how intense it can be at times, Atlanta United, Seattle fans, Portland fans, you get those great atmospheres. And I think you can sort of bring people in with that and with the culture. And then at the same time, a thing we've talked about recently is how you have a lot of money invested in attack and less money in defense.
Yeah.
So you get more goals and you're getting more crazy attacking plays, and you still get the kind of fluky moments that make for interesting SportsCenter top 10 or not top 10, as the situation may be. And I think all of that probably brings in people who are maybe tired of NFL and concussions and the controversies there, and maybe baseball's a little bit too slow, so maybe you pick up some people that way.
So I would have the opposite approach.
Okay.
I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'll just when I sat down, if I sit down at my desk as commissioner, I'd be going after the Eurosnobs. And the reason being is that I think the people who are sort of not interested in soccer, who like, NFL, NBA, NASCAR, whatever, they're just not interested in soccer at all. And at least the Eurosnobs have taken that one step forward where they're already interested in soccer, right? So there's a way that, like, if you essentially bring up the respectability of the league in their eyes, they are gettable in that they will then start respecting the league. I think these other people, the casual American sports fans, if they're going to get into soccer, they may be more interested to go World Cup first, and then maybe they'll go Champions League, and they may demand the best, you know what I mean? And they wouldn't start with Major League Soccer.
But I feel like they wouldn't demand the best if they don't know what the best is. So that's kind of where my answer came from. My question for you, though, is, as you said, like, you've got to bring the respectability up.
Yeah.
Like how would you do that? Or what would be your approach then?
I mean, essentially just making the league better. Right?
Okay. So you're going to try to pull in Eurosnobs by just like making everything else better, and then
essentially just improve the overall quality of the league. I mean, I'll be talking like pro rel, no salary caps, just make it more European style league.
I think we're going to answer some questions about those two things in just a moment.
And you could potentially bring the Eurosnobs in, right? Whereas I'm not sure the casual American sports fans are gettable. I think there are certain people who still have that soccer's for communists attitude, and they're not willing to even give it a chance.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say.
I'm not sure Real Salt Lake versus Sporting KC is going to convince them.
I know you don't want to debate this or argue this. I just fundamentally disagree with you.
It's fine. That's why when it comes, someone's going to have to choose you for commissioner or me for commissioner.
Because I think my final thing.
The real answer is both, right? You should go after both.
Think you should. My point earlier, like the initial thing I was saying though, is I think because Eurosnobs have put themselves, not even like snobs, but just people who prefer watching the Premier League or prefer watching the Bundesliga, they're already in this sort of MLS isn't that good, and so you have to bring them up to that level of no, but see, look how good it actually is, and you're really having to aggressively sell them in my mind. Versus casuals, I feel like you can bring them in with a little bit less effort. But that's just my perspective there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that it's more effort to get them to even care about soccer at all, right? If
that's
they're just
possible.
not I'd argue the Eurosnobs are at least a step closer in that they will watch 11v11 men trying to kick a ball into a net.
I think you just don't care about JJ Watt or Leslie Jones, and to me, that's disrespectful and hurtful.
Nice try. Nice try. Something that's not hurtful is today's sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by Manscaped, the number one men's below-the-belt grooming company.
Right. So we talked about Dollar Shave Club, how they've got you covered with your face, with your hair, with your teeth. You can buy the toothbrush.
We did that in the top half of the show.
Yeah, but if you don't want to maybe cross the razors, then you've got Manscaped.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah. You want to keep, you don't want to mix those up and suddenly you're shaving or trimming the wrong part of your body with the wrong grooming tool.
Don't shave down there with what you use up there.
Instead, use Manscaped, the number one in men's below-the-belt grooming, as you said. They have the Lawnmower 2.0, which has proprietary skin-safe technology, so there will be no nicking, no snagging.
Top to bottom. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. So I'm going to assume there's a lot of research went into the Lawnmower 2.0.
Yes.
I would hate to have seen the sort of early experiments with the rejected lawnmowers. Lawnmower 0.1. I think. I don't want to see the footage.
I mean,
of that.
they had it. It is no longer available. You can go to the website and see.
No,
for sale.
I said 0.1.
Oh, not 0.1. I see. But I do think they've put a lot. I mean, obviously they've put research into it. But if you look at how it's designed, we've talked about it before. It's smaller, it's more compact, but it's got a lot of power. So I think it gets the job done quickly. But it also has a nice little carrying pouch. So if you're a little bit embarrassed about carrying around your downstairs grooming accoutrement, you can just suddenly just in a nice little cloth bag and you're good to go.
Why would you be embarrassed about being better groomed than other men?
I mean, I don't know, other than to say that this copy always makes me slightly uncomfortable.
Same. If you want to get 20% off and free shipping, use the code TSS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code TSS.
To clarify, the act itself does not make me uncomfortable because, it's grooming. It's what you should do. It's just more so talking about it to people listening on their commute home or, with kids in the car. Hi, kids. That's what makes me uncomfortable. But what doesn't make me uncomfortable is having Manscaped as a sponsor because we enjoy them. Because, again, if we didn't believe in the quality, we wouldn't be talking about them. So thank you very much to Manscaped for sponsoring today's episode.
Manscaped.com. The link will be in the show notes. And the code, once again, is TSS for 20% off plus free shipping.
All right, Daryl, you talked about ProRel. You talked about salary caps.
It was on my mind for some reason.
Let's talk about that a little bit more because Ryan Downey asks, which rule change would impact Major League Soccer more, no salary cap or promotion relegation?
Definitely promotion relegation.
Agreed.
Would impact Major League Soccer more. Here's my thinking. If the rules changed so that there was no salary cap, meaning any team can spend as much as it wants.
Yep.
You would get Atlanta United spending millions and millions and millions. You would still get teams like, say, Colorado Rapids.
I was wondering who you were going to go with.
Not spending so much. But that team could just languish in last place in the standings and not get relegated.
Cough,
right?
cough, DC United. Cough,
right.
cough.
But you can sort of get left behind,
yep.
but still participate in MLS, and there's no punishment.
Still be in the same league, yeah.
Promotion relegation means that those teams who languish at the bottom would have to up their game, or they risk falling through the trapdoor into the second division.
Yeah, I mean, because even with other sports like Major League Baseball has the luxury tax. I think basketball does too. So then if you go over the cap, you have to give some money back, and that goes to the teams that aren't spending. But even then, you're sort of incentivizing a team to not spend. They get a little bit of money, and they can kind of be confident knowing that even if we finish last, we're still in the league. league. We're still around.
Yeah.
And we can just keep saving and saving and saving, and then eventually we'll spend some money. But it doesn't put the pressure on you immediately the way promotion relegation obviously would.
Meanwhile, please buy tickets to 80 home games.
Yes, totally. But with Pro-Rel, because you have that threat of dropping down, because you have that threat of being replaced, you can't rest on your laurels. You would have to spend, you would have to compete, and it would bring about that sort of competition and maybe raise the game a little bit more. Maybe then you get the Eurosnobs in there. You probably would if you had Pro-Rel. The other thing, if you're taking this question from me, in terms of which would actually impact Major League Soccer, adding Pro-Rel would impact it because you would have a lot of lawsuits because the owners who got into Major League Soccer when they did not get into it spending $250 million to then potentially get kicked out of the league for not doing well.
I mean, it depends how Pro-Rel comes about, right? If it comes about with like a vote from the owners and they agree to it, and that's really the only way it's going to come about, right? Is if MLS owners agree to it. But yeah, if it's imposed from above, lawsuits galore.
Yep.
And years of it, right? It would go on forever.
It certainly would.
You thought the Affordable Care Act challenge went a long time. Wait for Pro-Rel.
And that's not to say that, and therefore it shouldn't happen, because the reality is if you had Pro-Rel, then instead of, what I kept going to was FC Cincinnati this year, we know expansion teams always struggle their first season unless they're Atlanta United, but maybe Portland.
Well, LAFC?
And Seattle. Okay. But generally, being an expansion team is kind of difficult. And so, that was where my head went, is it would be a shame to bring in a new team and then they immediately get relegated. But obviously, if you have Pro-Rel, then you're not starting in Major League Soccer in the top division. You can start at a lower level for less money, find your footing, establish yourself, and then you build and build and build, and then you get to that level.
Here's the easy answer to Ryan's question. Which rule change would impact MLS more? It's Pro-Rel, because that would literally change the teams in Major League Soccer.
Also true. Well said. Well said, sir.
Next question is from Raghav Gupta. Raghav asks, given the Xhaka drama, who are some of the best captains in the Premier League and around the world?
Did you find this question harder to answer than you anticipated?
Yeah, because I think it's hard for us not being in locker rooms / dressing rooms to know who the good captains are. We can only make observations from the outside and maybe based on a few quotes from players here and there. It's just it's a tough thing to gauge from the outside.
It is. Yeah. And then I think I looked at all 20 teams and kind of scrolled through, and there's a lot of teams that have captains that maybe are ceremonial or are there for longevity, if not necessarily being the motivational figure. Ashley Young at Man United would be one. Wes Morgan at Leicester would be another. So the two I settled on were Jordan Henderson at Liverpool.
Same.
Because I think he's a consistent performer who's not really the focal point of the team, but then simultaneously is the focal point of the team at times. He's not the one that everybody's focusing on, and if he has a bad game, it's his fault and it's why Liverpool aren't doing well. There's so many other big performers there that he's almost the kind of metronome, the glue that has to kind of keep things moving, and I think also adjusts his game to suit whatever Jurgen Klopp is asking.
I've heard him referred to by Steven Gerrard as the best professional I've ever worked with. Just the most committed, he's always setting the best example in terms of, I assume, meaning be on time for practice, put 100% effort in for practice, absolute example of a player. And I think just from the outside, you could argue that setting that kind of example is what's led to Liverpool being this sort of really relentless, never say die team, right? You would never accuse them of letting standards drop. And that's why they essentially had a Premier League winning season last year in terms of form, actually won the Champions League, and look like the favourites to win the Premier League this year, including things like going 1-0 down to Aston Villa and the big comeback this past weekend. That all comes about because they never let standards drop, and I think a lot of that stems from Jordan Henderson.
Right.
And then at the same time, he's willing to sacrifice and literally play out of position, right? He played number 6 when he really wants to be a number 8 for a long, long time.
Yeah, but then he'll go and he'll go play right wing to pin an opposition player back to create more space. He did that against Man United, and I think he adjusts what's being asked of him, and I think that's what a captain has to do.
The other Gerrard quote was, Henderson always puts himself at the back of the queue so that others can benefit.
See, there we go.
Yeah.
But that, I'm glad you did that research, because the other thing that
I read one article.
It counts to me. Because the other thing that made this kind of difficult is I think unless you are really invested in the team, it's hard to really know. So I can look at kind of big name players, even Jordan Henderson. I'm not a Liverpool fan, so I can appreciate what he does, but at the same time, because I'm not following them week in, week out, I don't get as many of those stories of and he did this, and he helped this new player, and he bought this guy a car, and whatever, that makes you feel I get it. So a lot of this is coming from just my experience and my beliefs, and one of those...
Virgil van Dijk turned up in Liverpool with a bicycle.
Yeah, that was it. Exactly. And then Steven Gerrard taught him what's what. But I would say the one that, like, maybe I could be totally wrong. I'm not a huge Watford fan, but I also kind of love Captain Troy Deeney because he is, like, simultaneously jovial in that you can see where he makes jokes and is a kind of like happy figure, and then is also at the same time intimidating and will knock people around and will make things happen and will expect his teammates to do the same.
Are you always surprised by how friendly he is when he's interviewed? Because he looks like he should be like really angry all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like the Hulk.
But then, like, and I think part of that he's
the Hulk during the game, and he's Bruce Banner when he's interviewed.
Yeah, I like that. Wasn't disagreeing with that. It was more like, I don't think this is a spoiler, because if you haven't seen, what's the last Avengers? Not Infinity War, but
Endgame.
If you haven't seen Endgame, it's not even really a spoiler,
while, right?
But, like, you know how, like, Hulk in that one has the, like, he has it under control where he's, like, taking selfies and dabbing?
Yeah.
That's what Troy Deeney is. Like, he's this, like, physically intimidating figure who at the same time will give you very candid answers and be very charming and, like, funny. And so you get both sides of it. And I guess that's what I would want in a leader, is a person who will knock people off the ball and score those goals, but then also simultaneously, like, have a joke and, like, you know, have some good fun in the locker room.
I can also say I'm a big fan of Conor Cody as Wolves captain. I'm really, really happy with him as Wolves captain. He's another one who, you know, saw himself as a midfielder. Nuno came in and said, "Hey, I think you are the centre back in a back three," and Conor Cody was like, all right, let's try that. And I feel like that sort of represents the sort of big change in approach at Wolves, the fact that a senior player was just willing to go with it. I think it speaks well of Conor Cody.
Okay, I like that one. Did you have any from around the world?
I did not. I went Jordan Henderson. I kind of thought my work was done because I forgot that Raghav asked for around the world, so I'm hoping that you found some.
I have, but I've kind of gone historical because same thing as I said, like, I don't feel like I have the familiarity to say, oh, this guy at Bayern Munich or this person at Madrid or whatever is really, like, the one who's doing it. I don't watch them enough in my mind to feel comfortable saying that. So what I actually ended up doing was going historical, and I would say the few that came to mind for me in terms of, like, all-time captains that pop into my head right away: Iker Casillas at Real Madrid for the success he had and the longevity and the stability he provided; Francesco Totti at Roma for the longevity of his career; and then Roy Keane for being a psychopath.
I think I would add Raul for self-sacrifice. Like, obviously, he's Madrid through and through, but he left when he was getting a little less effective. Yep. And the same for Spain. He essentially, I think he was Spain captain, and Euro 2008, he just took himself out of the running and said, hey, I'm just going to step aside and let David Villa, Fernando Torres, and let those guys be the strikers. Recognizing maybe when you might be senior, but you're not the most effective anymore.
I think that is the nice way to interpret that. The other way, which is how I, like, had that same thought, and then I was like, yeah, but then as soon as he quit being captain, they won 3 straight things in a row.
Yeah, because he quit.
Right.
But he sacrificed himself.
But, like, maybe that means that he was a problem.
He's like Aslan.
Okay. All right.
He went to the stone table and they won 3 trophies in a row.
You can have your Raul if you want. But I do think, I know this is my Man United homerism, but Roy Keane really establishing that, like, nothing is fun here, everything is serious, and we will win at all costs because everything is serious all the time. I would not love playing in that system. Roy Keane and I would not get along. I guarantee you I would be way too happy for him.
It's a version of what we talked about with Jordan Henderson. I think Jordan Henderson maybe just does it in a more friendly way, but it's about setting standards, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's about demanding sincere professionalism, and I think rewarding the people who bring that to the table and punishing those who don't on and off the field, verbally and physically.
All right, Tyler, next question.
All right, that works for me. Robert Cordova asks, Bastian Schweinsteiger has retired. I guess that's more of a statement. Then he asks, how do you view his career?
Ooh, I think it's a long career, right? So there's that.
Yep.
And I think the thing I have in my head is how he's almost 2 different players. I remember, I think I first really became aware of him World Cup 2006 when Germany hosted. If I remember correctly, he was like a pacey attacking. I remember him as like an attacking winger. Right? I don't know if he was quick or not, but he was an attacking right winger. So I remember Bastian Schweinsteiger. But then as his career evolved, he became more of a central midfielder who essentially ran the game through a mix of never-ending energy, mixed with intelligent passing, like intelligent decisions, and deadly shots from distance. So I think in the end, in my head, he's gone from a winger who's one thing to a player who a midfielder who more or less has everything and can control a game.
With that said...
And then he kind of, through injuries, regressed to a midfielder who didn't have the pace and energy or knees to get all over the field. Still had moments, but couldn't influence a game the way he used to. I'm thinking of him at Manchester United.
Yeah, I was going to say he came in contact with Man United. That's what happened.
Yeah. Well,
they infect your career.
But it wasn't Man United that did it to him, right?
It might have been.
It was the knee injuries, as I understand it.
It could be both. I think as soon as you sign for the team, it's just like, oh, and by the way, your performance is going to dip 20%. That's just part of the deal. That's how it works. I do think, in terms of how I view his career, I'm going to say disappointment, because he could not even take the Chicago Fire to the World Cup, let alone win it with them. And I think that was an expectation we all had.
He did raise expectations in Chicago that they could win the World Cup.
This is true. No, in all seriousness, and like, I feel slightly uncomfortable because this is maybe just too stereotypical, but it is how I view his career, is that he is the definitive German player in that he is like a professional. Like, we've never heard anything about him getting into hijinks off the field or causing problems or getting into locker room altercations. He's disciplined in that he had a very long career and was very successful for a very long time. He was a leader, but he brings it, like, there's that ruthlessness and that efficiency in those Bayern Munich teams that he will always personify. Like, I remember, like, Man United when I supported them, or just watching him when I supported them against Bayern Munich, or like watching him in the Champions League and just expecting Bayern Munich to find a way to win. And he was very, like, key in that and an instrumental figure in those teams. And then you look at the success he had at club level, Bayern, of like the Bayern juggernaut coming through their academy, 8 titles in 12 seasons. That's a decent return, plus a Champions League and a World Cup title. So he wins all the silverware, but just is so dominant in the Bundesliga and then in that Germany, in that World Cup team, that it all just kind of comes together.
It's just occurred to me that his career tracks the rise of that Jogi Löw team.
Yes.
Right? So 2006, it's Klinsmann as coach, Jogi Löw as the assistant, and it's kind of like a youthful optimism about the team, and it's a young Bastian Schweinsteiger. 2010, it's the Jogi Löw team, and I think Schweinsteiger is one of the key performers in 2010, but they're not quite fully formed. It's not quite ready to win the World Cup. And then 2014, he's obviously a much more seasoned, mature midfielder, and it's a much more, this is the final product kind of team, and they win the 2014 World Cup. So his career tracks perfectly with the rise of that German team. And then as he gets older and injured and retires from international football is when Germany are kind of not so dominant again.
Very true. And I think with that in mind, with how good that German team consistently were, only winning one World Cup only, but still just being, I think they were like runners-up in a Euro. I think they were runners-up in a World Cup, or at least maybe finished third place.
2008 Euros,
But 121 appearances for that German team is no mean feat.
All right. Also, I oddly think of him as a one-club man, even though he left Bayern and went to Manchester United and then to Chicago Fire.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think it's like the modern equivalent of a one-club man, where no one actually does it anymore. Like Gerrard, you think of as a Liverpool one-club man, but then I also went and played for the LA Galaxy.
I mean, Francesco Totti would like a word with you.
I'm sure he would. I'd happily talk to him.
So I think that's what it is for me. It's like, as lazy as that might sound, I think I have reasons for it. That to me, he is like the definitive Bayern Munich German. That's what I'm going with. That's what I view his career as being.
All right, plenty more questions to come. But first, today's show is sponsored by our friends at Talisman and Co, which is what they're really called. We call them Talisman Caps because the website is talismancaps.com, but Talisman and Co. I think if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you will have heard about Talisman, so you know that they offer like incredibly
high-end quality made caps.
High-end quality made caps, as well as all kinds of other football accoutrement.
Gear to help you support your club or clubs that you love.
There you go. They are now running a giveaway. There is a $1,000 Talisman gift card giveaway.
From now through November 22nd, there will be 10 winners. Each will receive a $100 Talisman and Co. gift card. Listeners can sign up on Talisman's website and earn extra points for following Talisman on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, tweeting about the campaign, taking their poll, Talisman's poll, to let them know who you cheer for. If you do all those things, you increase your chances.
And so if you go to talismancaps.com, you can find the page where you can enter the contest for the $100 gift card giveaway. Also, we'll put a link in the show notes so you can just click on it, and there you can sign up and you can enter to win. Talisman are also always coming out with new products, and they've got some new 5-panel hats from the 90s.
That's right.
What I'm going to say.
It's a new kit pattern collection inspired by vintage Liverpool, Man United, and Arsenal jerseys. They've got the Red Devils blue cap, which is a little bit confusing, but it's got the different patterns from the various blue jerseys of the 90s.
I went back and looked. It's like 90 to 92 era Manchester United. And it's like a light blue, like almost arrows, but not quite. Like a zigzaggy, jagged type shape.
Yep.
And it's the jersey you would have seen, say, Mark Hughes, Brian Robson towards the end of his career, and a young Ryan Giggs would be wearing this jersey.
I like those jerseys.
Brian McClare. Do you remember Brian McClare?
Of course.
Yeah.
They've got the Liverpool candy red jersey, and then they've got the bruised banana Gunners hat.
Yes.
I like that one a lot. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but of the three, I might wear that one.
I can sort of visualize Ian Wright scoring a bunch of goals in that jersey.
I thought you were going to say in that hat, and I was like, that would be impressive.
I mean, I'm sure he could score goals in a hat as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you want to check those caps out, you can. You could also check out their vintage vault. You could get great accessories like the camping mug, which we've talked about many times. We like that one quite a bit.
Do you think people are sick of hearing about the camping mug?
I think they are, but I don't care.
We're going to mention it again.
And you can get 10% off your purchase, a minimum purchase of $35, using the promo code TOTALSOCCER10.
That's Total Soccer, the words, 10 the numbers, Total Soccer 10 at talismancaps.com. The link to the giveaway will be in the show notes. We encourage you to sign up and maybe win one of those $100 gift cards.
There we are. So thank you very much to Talisman Caps for sponsoring today's episode. More listener questions, Mr. Grove. I believe it's your turn to ask.
Okay, Martha Escobar. Escobar asks, as a Barca fan, I often see videos of the players arriving at the stadium on game day. They always carry a toiletry bag. Don't they have a locker where they keep personal items? What is in that bag?
All right, a couple of things here. I mean, I think it is exactly that. I think it's the products they use, like before the game, because we know now that soccer players like to look as put together as possible.
Yeah, so it's hair products like toothbrush, probably all that kind of stuff.
You get some beard oil in there, maybe. You never know.
Some Dollar Shave Club products.
Yeah, I'm sure they should. They darn well should. The reason why I think they always bring it with them, there's a couple different reasons. If you look at the locker room when it's all like laid out and pretty before the players show up to change, it's pretty Spartan. That they've got like the shoes they might wear, they've got the jersey that the kit man or kit person has laid out, and the kind of match day stuff. Aside from that, it is very Spartan, and I think a reason for that is because they do stadium tours. Lots of teams have stadium tours. You don't really want your personal stuff kind of out there as people walk by and they're like, and I'm just going to go ahead and yoink Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's personal kit, and now it's mine.
Or Gerard Piqué's in this case.
Or that, yeah. So I think that is another big one. And then on top of that, like, you just kind of want your stuff, is my feeling.
Yes.
And if you're going to be traveling, if you have a home game and then an away game, and then you're on the road in the Champions League, you don't want to have to oh shoot, I left all that gear at the stadium. I got to go back and get it all and pack it back up.
And you don't want to also turn up to the stadium and think, oh, all my stuff is there, but you get there and you're like, oh, I've run out of this. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to bring this, right? That's why, I mean, I only have one wash. I go to multiple locations. Like maybe I should have a wash bag here at the studio. Yeah. Maybe another one some other places I go. But no, I just have one, and it's at my house. And when I go places, I take it with me.
Yeah,
it's worth remembering these players have often come from a hotel, right? So you need to take it to the hotel so you've got your stuff there.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And like, you're absolutely right, because we often hear players say like, oh, I don't really have superstitions. Like, I'm not really like, I have to wear this one sock and then this one sock. But I think if you press them, it will be about, but I want to feel prepared and I want to feel like as packed and organized and ready to go as possible.
Yeah.
Not all players, but I think a lot of players. And I think that factors into it too, that to your point, you don't want to get there and be like, oh, I don't have any hair gel. So no one knows that I have an afro, but they're going to find out. That would be my experience. Is like suddenly they would know that I have this weird, short, curly hair on top instead of my well-slicked back hair.
I thought we should make it happen.
It does in Richmond when it gets hot and humid.
I'm going to steal your wash bag before our next game.
My hair is so curly that on a very hot and humid day, no matter how much stuff I'm putting in it, it's ending up in ringlets. That's how it works.
All right, final question of today comes from Shreyas Ramani.
It's going to hijack my question. That's how you're going to be.
Oh,
with the international break coming, how dare you? Are there any countries who should be concerned about how their team is trending with regards to qualification for the Euros? On the flip side, are there any countries who should be very excited?
I would have asked it better. All right, so teams that are not doing so well in qualification, the one that really pops out to me is Switzerland. Switzerland are third in Group D behind Ireland and Denmark, and so they're at risk of not qualifying for Euro 2020. Of course, they have the second. If they don't make it, if they finish third in their group, they do have the secondary option of qualifying through the Nations League playoff spots. There are 4 spots available. 16 teams will compete for them after Euro 2020 qualifying is over. But it's kind of, once you get into playoff mode, right? It's 2 games, and if you lose either of them, you're not going to the Euros. So Switzerland really should be winning that group, right? Based on their standing in world football, they should be winning that group ahead of Ireland and Denmark. And on the flip side, just looking at that group, any countries that should be very excited, Ireland. top of the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a good shout. To go to your point about Switzerland, though, I think the reason why maybe you focused in on them is because they're sort of representative of the change in qualifying, in that there are lots of teams who would be more concerned if we were going with the historical way that teams qualify for the Euros, but because you have the Nations League and what that could mean in terms of teams getting a shot at the playoffs.
You get a second chance, basically. Yeah.
Like teams that would be in trouble, historically, but because of the Nations League are not.
I'd say they're still in trouble. Because you're supposed to try and it's much it's 100% more preferable to qualify regularly through the Euro 2020 qualifying group. I don't think saying there's the Nations League playoff as a backup means you're not in trouble. You're still in trouble.
What I'm saying is that there are teams that are literally eliminated, except because they have the Nations League, they're not eliminated anymore. Which yes, they're in trouble because they're no longer in contention or are very long shots to qualify automatically, but it's not as in the past where now they would just be done and it wouldn't matter. You have teams like Kosovo, Serbia, Switzerland, Norway, Bosnia, Scotland, all can still qualify because they have that playoff. So even if they don't necessarily make it directly, they still have the playoff because of the Nations League. So to me, you still have that out potentially. So you're still alive in a way when you wouldn't have been 4 years ago.
And I think that's great for a team like Scotland that traditionally doesn't qualify through the regular qualifying table. But for a team like Switzerland that expects to qualify the regular way, I think they're in trouble.
I think so too. And I agree with that. I also agree that a lot of the home nations seem like they're in a little bit of trouble. Scotland, as I said,
Wales are fourth in Group E.
Yep. 6 games played, 8 points. They're behind Croatia, Hungary, and Slovakia. They could still catch them because it's 14, 12, 10, and then you've got 8 points for Wales. But still, fourth place is not great.
Because it really felt like Euro 2016 was maybe the beginnings of something.
It did, right?
And then this will be 2 tournaments in a row that they haven't
Gareth Bale spent his time playing golf. Northern Ireland would be another one that was there last time round. This time, third place. They don't have any playoffs or any extenuating circumstances, so they're going to have to really elevate those performances to get there. But again, you don't have the big names who are potentially... There's no the Netherlands are on the verge of missing because a lot of these teams have qualified, but you do still have then some of the teams you wouldn't expect. As you said, Republic of Ireland would be one. Hungary would be one who, even though they made it last time, to have them back in there and potentially automatically qualifying.
Where are they? What are they doing?
They are second place in Group E, behind Croatia, ahead of Slovakia, Wales, and Azerbaijan. And then the biggest one for me, that's a huge surprise, Turkey. On top of their group, ahead of France. I kind of can't believe it.
I haven't paid attention to the Turkish national team.
I do not know. I genuinely don't know the answer. But they're 6-1-1 of the group.
According to that group, they're good.
Yeah. I would say so. And that means they're there at the expense of Iceland, who, should note, do not have, as far as I know, a playoff or any sort of Nations League thing that allows them that loophole. So Iceland could very well miss out because they're currently 4 points behind second place France.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for today's questions. We kind of expected to talk US men's national team roster today, right? But it's not released until Thursday. We're expecting late morning Thursday. We will get the US men's national team roster for the games against Canada and Cuba. I'm going to say there's a lot riding on this roster.
Oh, you think?
Because if there's no Morales, there's no Dwayne Holmes, and it's the same old, it'll be more like, all right, that means Berhalter's going to play the same old against Canada. And it's going to be more of the same, more of what we saw last month.
Quick little roster preview. If you see those same names, will it push you over the edge into okay, this just isn't going to work for me?
It'll make me... I mean, I'll still wait to see what happens
it's a tough question,
when
right?
they take the field. And if it all suddenly clicks and Christian Roldan's making tackles and then connecting play, I'll be like, okay, maybe finally it has all clicked. But so I'm still willing to hold out genuinely until the final whistle goes on this Canada game.
Okay.
Right? That's where I'm withholding my Berhalter in or out judgment until. But if the roster is same old, and for some reason no Holmes, no Morales, I will at least be less optimistic that things are going to go well.
All right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. To bring it back full circle to Joey Jadlowski's question about would you go for casuals or Eurosnobs? I think that's where I am with this a little bit, in that if he calls in the same people, I'm not going to be that's it, it's never going to work, fire him. But my bar will have been significantly lowered to the point where it would then have to be an amazing, you're right, everything is clicked and this is what we've been striving for and it finally came together. But if it's we won 1-0 but it was once again unconvincing, I'm going to be way further down in my estimations than I would have been otherwise.
But if it is a more appetizing roster, then it's only 1-0, you still feel a little better then?
I think so, because at least it shows there's some experimentation, at least in the roster.
Some flexibility with selection.
Yeah, and then maybe that also bleeds into, we see some flexibility with how the U.S. plays and who gets to play and what ends up happening.
All right, well, fingers crossed for happy news tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So we'll have a show all about the U.S. roster tomorrow. I said thank you, everybody, for the questions. If you'd like to send one, it's totalsoccershow.com/questions. Put the link in the show notes so you can click it. If you can send us a question that's just like one sentence, that's what we love. A nice, clear, simple question, just like the ones you heard today on the Total Soccer Show.
And if you want to make sure that your question will be answered at some point, then you can subscribe to the $10 level. We guarantee to answer your questions there. But if you subscribe at any level, then you get signed up for a TSS Scout, or as a TSS Scout, you get to scout a player. Daryl will assign one, and we've got several scouting reports to get to today.
We sure do.
Most of them, all of them, I believe, are Americans playing all over the place.
They are. Okay, it's an all-American scouting network update.
Except sort of for the first one. It comes from Jeff and Sam Huffman scouting Mukwele Akele, the 22-year-old American attacker for Villarreal.
He's American.
No Akele news, say Jeff and Sam. But Villarreal B played Castellón last Sunday and won 2-1, despite the fact that A, Castellón had 11 men the whole game. B, Villarreal B finished the game with 8 men, Reds in the 45th, 70th, 90th minutes. And C, Villarreal scored the game winner in the 80th minute with only 9 men.
I'm going to assume that Mukwele Akele played in that game, though.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
but
right.
No news is maybe not good news.
Nick Imhoff is scouting Emmanuel Sabi, 21-year-old American winger for Hobro. Nick says Sabi scored Hobro's lone goal in a 1-1 draw versus Silkeborg. On a goalmouth scramble, Sabi was able to get a toe to the ball to knock it in. He is struggling to find consistency when it comes to scoring and needs to turn that around if he ever wants to get back on the U23 radar.
Turn around, Sabi.
There'll also be a U23 roster named pretty soon.
All right. Maybe he'll be on that one. And then maybe he won't have to turn it around. Maybe it won't matter. Patrick Keeler scouting Anthony Robinson, the 21-year-old American left back for Wigan. Anthony is a nailed-down starter for Wigan. Only their goalkeeper has more minutes than him this season. Robinson is top 10 in the league in successful dribbles and was named to the Championship Team of the Month for October.
If only he could improve his successful tackles.
I am
then.
so confused by Anthony Robinson.
He's a winger playing left back. That's what's going on with Anthony Robinson.
And now I'm less confused by Anthony Robinson. Thanks, Daryl.
Todd Brannan is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Before we get to CCV, with that in mind, would you be okay with seeing Anthony Robinson brought in to try to play left wing?
I mean, no, because we've got other players. Well, I don't know, because I've never
Others are ahead of him?
I've never actually seen him play left wing. He always has played left back, right? But he just looks to me like a guy who has all the qualities of a winger and not many of the defensive qualities. So he'd be safer on the wing.
But if we did try to experiment and have the left back be more attacking and the right back stay home, maybe that would fit.
I'd rather have Serginho Dest be that winger.
All right,
you know what I mean?
All right, fair enough. Well, we'll see what happens when Anthony Robinson is not included in the roster tomorrow.
He might be on the U23 roster. Todd Brannan is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, 21-year-old American centre-back on loan at Stoke from Spurs. Todd says CCV went the full 90 for Stoke in their 2-0 loss to Millwall. I'm assuming it's still going badly at Stoke. The start and complete game was a surprise, coming only 3 days after he suffered a laceration below his right knee in a midweek game against Sheffield Wednesday, which required 8 stitches. The loss was the second straight for Stoke in the Championship after wins preceding and following the international break. The most recent loss dropped Stoke back into a tie for last place in the table and will no doubt resume speculation surrounding the future of manager Nathan Jones.
So hopefully Cameron Carter-Vickers recovers. Hopefully Stoke do as well, though I'm imagining if he just got stitches, he's probably not going to be called in for either team. Kaz Tidrick scouting Robbie Mertz, the 22-year-old American midfielder for Pittsburgh. Robbie played the full 90 and scored a PK in the Hounds' 7-0 win over Birmingham to progress to the USL Eastern Conference semifinals. He then went the full 120 minutes in the Hounds' 2-1 home loss in extra time to two-time reigning champs Louisville City. Robbie had some bright flashes amongst what was a relatively poor performance by the team on the whole.
Ryan Downey is scouting Zion Jones, the 19-year-old American forward for the Charlotte Independents. Ryan says, with Charlotte Independents' season coming to a close, it's difficult to say what happened to Zion Jones. Over the course of the last month, he only made the squad once and never received any playing time. Jones' contract is set to expire at the end of November, and there hasn't been any news of any extension. This is a fall from grace from Zion Jones, right? He was with the Schalke U19s not so long ago.
He was. But, Joe Gallardo was with the US U20s at one point. He came to Richmond. U17s, excuse me. He came to Richmond. He found form. He scored goals. Maybe Zion Jones comes to Richmond Kickers next season.
We saw some
problems.
Right?
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Katie Sutton, scouting Katie Cousins, the 22-year-old American midfielder for the University of Tennessee. Katie Cousins scored her first goal of the season, a beautifully placed rocket to the far corner in a 1-0 win over the University of Florida in your face Gators. Cousins now has 1 goal and 4 assists in what has been a disappointing season for Tennessee. That said, they have been on a good run of form, and this win puts them in position to qualify for the SEC tournament.
Richie Garcia is scouting Emerson Heineman, the 23-year-old American midfielder on loan Atlanta from Bournemouth. I did that on purpose. Heineman unseated $15 million man Pity Martinez as a starter in Frank de Boer's lineup in the conference semi-finals. De Boer said of Heineman, the discipline that Emerson does and what he brings defensively in our box, that's the balance that I'm searching for. Then he was relegated to the bench in their 2-1 loss to Toronto in the Eastern Conference final. I thought that was the balance you were searching for, De Boer. Nevertheless, Richie says that it's great to see Emerson find a team that fits his skill set and a manager that believes in him. I'm personally interested to see what's next. Back to Atlanta? Transfer to Atlanta?
Yeah. Oh, you mean back to Bournemouth or transfer to Atlanta?
I mean, next season, does he come back to Atlanta?
Yeah. I feel like he goes back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
But we shall see. Anurag Anjaria scouting Andrea Novakovic, the 23-year-old American striker for Frosinone. 0 goals, 1 assist in 7 appearances, only in the starting lineup twice and going the full 90 minutes once.
Not ideal, but better than playing for Reading's under 23s.
This is true.
Colin Solberg is scouting Michael Edwards, the 18-year-old American defender for Wolfsburg. Colin says, Edwards has been a consistent starter for Wolfsburg U19s. He has 8 starts. The team has kept a clean sheet in 4 of those. Edwards is doing so well that he was called up to the U23 squad for a game versus Valencia's under-23 squad in England.
Colin was uncertain why Wolfsburg were playing Valencia in England, aside from it being one of those weird Premier League youth competitions which features international teams.
I think they do that, right?
Odd.
I'm going to say they call it the Premier League Cup.
I believe it was. I think that was in there, and I may have removed that
Even though that's not really what it is.
No, it's not.
Thank you to everybody for the scouting reports. If you haven't received your scouts, you've signed up and you haven't received your scouts, please email me, Daryl@TotalSockShow.com.
It's the Cooligans' fault.
Let me know you're waiting.
Daryl wanted to send scouting reports the entire time we were in Germany. The Cooligans stole his computer and wouldn't let him access the scouting network. I don't know why they did that.
Those bullies.
I know, right?
Those bullies.
So mean to you.
Don't listen to their show.
Don't.
Do listen to their show.
Yeah. Listen to Christian Polanco's part, mute the rest of it, and then listen to Polanco again.
Just a double Polanco?
Yeah.
That's terrible advice.
Is it?
I mean, it's one side of a conversation.
Yeah, good point. All right, don't do that.
This is why I'm in charge of editing today's show.
That makes sense.
You'd be making bad decisions.
Probably.
All right, thank you to everybody for the questions.
Oh, we've crossed the 1 hour mark. That's
there
where it
gets
weird.
Weird. Taylor's gone weird. I suppose I have to.
It's like clockwork. It's very strange.
Let's wrap it up then.
Okay.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's been fine.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow to talk US men's national team roster.